Rick Scott of Florida has declared a state of emergency in the state as a result of a Zika virus outbreak. Now, there are as many as 9 individuals who have detected the Zika virus, but they have not contracted it in the United States. They apparently traveled to other countries, and that's when they got bitten by a mosquito and unfortunately got the virus. Now, the reason why this is a state of emergency is because the governor is rightfully concerned that this will now spread to other people in the country, in the state, and that could lead to many terrible birth defects for pregnant women or women who are looking to conceive. So if you get the Zika virus and you are a healthy adult who's not planning on getting pregnant or who isn't pregnant, you'll have some mild symptoms that will eventually go away, right? But if you are pregnant, it could have some serious ramifications on the baby. It could lead to a condition that has the baby develop a very small head and a small brain, and usually they don't live very long. They die shortly after birth. So let me give you some more details on that. So Scott's executive order requires the state health officer to take any action necessary to protect public health and allows the Commissioner of Agriculture to issue a mosquito declaration in the affected counties to reduce populations of the insects that can spread the disease.
I would just do that now.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to lower the amount of mosquitoes in the areas that are likely to have Zika at some point in the future, I'd probably just do it.
So Miami-Dade...
Sure, it's expensive, but...
Of course, but who cares? If it's a public health issue, then that's what our taxpayer money should be used for. So Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, Lee, and Santa Rosa are all counties that have been impacted by this.
Oh, just Miami. So small rural communities, not actually going to affect that many people. This is obviously horrifying. So 9 people have been infected, all of them travel cases. So they went to an area that was that had it, they were infected, and then they came back. Or that's what they say. Although if some of them had gotten it here, they probably wouldn't say that. I mean, you can go around questioning the government as much as you want on everything, and I know that I probably seem like a kook to do it, but they wouldn't say if 3 of them had gotten it because a couple people came back and mosquitoes bit them and then spread it to someone else. Now, the cool thing about Zika is that it doesn't stay in the body for that long. And so as long as you identify it and you get people to avoid being bitten by mosquitoes over the course of a couple of weeks, it's unlikely to then spread to someone. And as long as they abstain from sexual activity, because it can be spread sexually as well.
But just keep in mind that this is Florida. Florida is one massive swamp. Like stagnant water everywhere. It's like a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So to tell the people of Florida, hey, just avoid getting bitten by a mosquito, I think is a little bit unreasonable.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it becomes even more unreasonable than that, because if it does start to spread, then we might have to have some version of what many countries in Latin and South America are doing and ask them to abstain from having children for a couple of years.
Right.
That's a little bit harder even. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. It seems like it is likely to spread. It spread rapidly across huge populations south of us. I very quickly looked, and California seems to be out of at least one of the mosquitoes' breeding grounds. But as the climate continues to change, that will probably change as well, and they will begin to move into areas that they hadn't previously lived in.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm actually pretty worried about this, right? Because it could have a negative impact on society, especially if you tell society, like, you can't have kids for 2 years, like, avoid having kids. I don't know. I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have. I'm going to be honest about that. But I also worry because I'm going to be visiting 2 areas that are impacted by this, Mexico and Florida. And I feel like I'm going to get the virus.
Well, so far, Florida, relatively perfectly fine.
I'm going to Miami, Florida.
Yeah, and look, if we eventually had to have some sort of declaration like that, we're going to talk a little bit later in this hour about the effect on especially poor women in Texas of Texas's anti-abortion, anti-Planned Parenthood legislation. And so if you're told, okay, for 2 years you can't have kids, and there used to be clinics in your area that made that a possibility, but now they're either hundreds of miles away or far more expensive, then some women will start to be affected by the microcephaly in their kids. What would be one little silver lining out of this, and I understand that scientists all over the world, and especially in America and South and Latin America, are working on treatments for Zika, which don't currently, it's difficult to even test for it, to see if a person has that. Not every location can do that. But it should start to have us maybe pay more attention to the fact that Zika has some percentage of the kids who are born to women with Zika develop the microcephaly, the smaller skull size. We have no idea what that number is. We don't know if it's 50% of kids, 1%, 0.1%. But I also know that there are 100 other things, contaminants in the environment that cause birth defects or developmental problems that we don't test for and we don't have public campaigns about. BPA absolutely destroys kids in a number of different ways, and it's still largely unregulated in a lot of products.
Yeah, BPA mimics estrogen, and so you're seeing more and more girls who aren't even in their teens yet starting puberty. So yes, there's all sorts of stuff around us that's more harmful or poses a bigger risk or threat.
And I'm not trying to minimize Zika whatsoever, but I'm saying hopefully when people start to say, oh my God, there's this disease that actually has this terrible effect on my kid, maybe we can start to bundle that with other things that maybe the government should start to take seriously that for various moneyed reasons they have not.